glad you got some sun now. So you hate me a bit less.
Day. Yes.
It's interesting for Spanish speakers, the Cockney accents. I think Trevor and Ben are the most popular because apparently it's the most easiest to understand. The more you speak like a Barrow boy, apparently it's kind of the easier to understand for Spanish speakers. So
yes,
you like it, don't you?
okay.
I think you quoted it's like listening to something from Harry Potter, which was, I think that's a good thing.
God. Good luck with the Yorkshire accent, guys.
Yeah, so Claire now is not from London. You'll notice there's a little bit of a different twang happening. But yeah. Right, 10:44. Say again.
Good morning, Claire, and was amazing presentation to Trevor as well. I think thank you to Trevor.
Yeah, really good. How am I going to
So
follow
much.
that?
It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. But you're going to have a go, aren't you? Right, okay. If Claire has the power to share a screen, we will start.
Let's have a little look.
Yeah.
Try that one. Is that looking all right?
Beautiful.
Oh. Am I going? Or am I?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Waiting. Okay. Cool. Well, hi guys, and thank you, Matt. First of all, so much for inviting me to what I'm sure will become, if it's not already, an institution. The Runchatlive conference is, it's amazing session yesterday, and amazing lineup today. Hopefully, I won't bring the tone down. And yeah, really honoured to be a part of this esteemed faculty, and yeah, really inclusive conference. So thank you, and amazing efforts as well. Everybody who's behind the scenes, I know what it takes, and you're doing a superb job. So much appreciated. And also translating me into Spanish, making me sound a lot better than I actually am. So thanks for that. So what I've been asked to speak about is strength and conditioning. So it may be a surprise or maybe not. So that's kind of my area. And how we perhaps might want to think about it in an endurance environment. So I'm not a running specialist. I do see runners. They tend to be perhaps slightly older runners, and usually when there's a issue or some sort of problem that's affecting their ability to continue to do what they want to do at the level that they want to do it. So that's a kind of majority of people I see in that running environment. So with that kind of hat on, I'll present to you information that I think is pertinent, but also cognizant of the fact that we're looking at performance too. So three kind of things that I want to try and cover today. So looking at resistance training in this endurance environment. And then, does resistance or strength training benefit endurance from either a performance perspective or an injury risk? And we've got a couple of interesting discussion points there. And then in a half-hour session, how to implement this resistance training, and obviously avoid that horrible thing that everybody immediately thinks of. You're going to get huge, massive muscles, wake up as Arnold Schwarzenegger or the female equivalent. So first thing I want you to do, look at the center of the screen here, just really focus. And this really works well with endurance athletes. So if that's you, then it's going to really work well. So just focus, keep looking. I will do strength training. I will do strength training. I will do strength training. Okay, got it? Super, presentation done. Now, so clearly there's, as we've spoken about throughout the conference, there's often this unwillingness or this conflict between endurance performance and strength training, resistance training. You know, you mention resistance training in an endurance environment and you head for the hills, run away, anything but, I'll do an extra run, anything but resistance training. And that's either as a individual potentially feel that way, or as a therapist dealing with endurance athletes. I know that's something that I encounter regularly. Andy, we spoke about it yesterday. And to some degree, I kind of empathize with that perspective as well, because when you, as an individual, perhaps try and seek out what strength training might be or what to do as a runner, you've you're faced with a multitude of different sources of information from, you know, good quality literature, which isn't always easily accessible, or indeed, you know how to search for that, through then to magazines and forums and coaches and athletes. You've got this essentially complex milieu of conflicting information. So you can become quite apathetic and think, you know, what's the point? And lots of anecdotes. And, you know, I once saw a runner, really good county runner, approaching international standard, got a little bit of knee pain. His quality coach told him he needed to do 100 squats, continuous squats per day to get rid of it, because that worked for one of his athletes previously. So sometimes we're dealing with these issues. So if we actually did a Google search, what might come up if we look for strength training or strength program for runners? And these are just three things that popped up when I did this put together this presentation a couple of days ago. So on the left here, we've got this strength building phase as a part of a program that was in Runner's World online. And if we look at this, we've got a repetitions box, just flagging up one or two things. So for leg curl, which we're presuming is going to be the hamstring group there, we need to be doing 10 to 12 reps. For leg extension, bear in mind this is a strength building phase. Others then went on to different focus on different phases. So this is purely strength, 10 to 12 reps, but knee extension, so the knee extensor group only need to do 6 to 8 reps. Calf complex, 20 reps. Really confusing. There's no real indication on intensity. We've got some doing, you know, drop sets and supersets, and it's a real mixed bag. And I'm sure this was really well intended, but it's confusing. And then you might see some resistance band type exercises, suggestions that this is strength training, and then maybe a whole raft of prescriptions from a plank through to back extensions and scorpion kind of stretches and movements. And we've got, this still is classed as strength training in this Runner's World article. So we've got 45 to 60 seconds, then through to 10 to 12 reps. And then some, I mean, I'm sure many of you, if not probably all of you, can critique that from a strength training perspective. So it's no wonder really when, you know, we're trying to convince individuals that this is the right way, that, you know, it's a pretty mind-blowing exercise. So what I'd like to do today, because this is a huge topic, and strength and conditioning itself is a huge topic. And within a endurance and running training environment, we've got several questions that we could address, like why to do it. And there's a multitude of reasons that we could discuss there. How to do it, again, there's a multitude of approaches that we can adopt. And also when to do it, there's a multitude of questions and considerations that we need to have. So what I want to do is kind of give a surface level answer to each of those questions. So we've got an idea of the why, the how, and the when going forward when we're trying to implement this into endurance and strength training, endurance and running training. And let me just say as well, so strength and conditioning, as I said, is a huge topic. We could talk about that for days. What I'm going to focus on is purely muscle strength. Now, again, when we mention muscle strength or strengthening or anything to do with resistance in an endurance environment, we often get maybe a shocked look from your patients, or maybe yourself have got these ideas of what that represents. And sometimes these images are conjured up in their mind, which is, you know, clearly here we've got a bodybuilder, and then we've got strength athletes on the right and the middle there. And I'm not suggesting that we're trying to implement the exact same types and volumes of training that these individuals are doing. But there's certainly things that we can draw from that. Now, for example, these two individuals here, these are the strength athletes. So their training is going to be focused principally on developing muscle strength. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about that later, but I'm not for 1 minute suggesting, nor could I ever imagine convincing you to exchange your endurance training for the same volume of strength training. Your passion is in running, and we want to keep you running at the level that you want to be running at for as long as possible. But often we see people with the idea that strength training, and we talked about this yesterday, didn't we, a little bit, strength training means massive muscles, you're going to get put on volume and size, and this just ain't true. Okay, so there's a difference between strength training and bodybuilding. So let's just have a little look at that. So what is strength training? So that involves heavy load, very high intensity, and because of that we can only do very few repetitions per set. And we really need to maximize the effectiveness of those interventions along rest between sets. And if we're looking at muscle strength, we spoke yesterday about the needing to define things in order to be, one, able to measure it, but two, to be able to intervene properly. Muscle strength, or maximal muscle strength, is the ability of a muscle group to produce a maximal force in a single contraction. So if you're going to measure it in a gym environment, it might be a 1 rep max. If you're lucky enough to have a dynamometer, then it'll be the maximal force that muscle or muscle group can produce. So it ain't that. This is not going to optimally develop muscle strength, unless indeed that person is quite deconditioned and that represents the right intensity. Now, bodybuilding involves heavy or moderate loads. It can be very high or high to moderate intensity. It can be a few or more repetitions, and it can involve long or maybe not so long interset rest periods. Now, the goal of this is to maximize the muscle cross-sectional area and muscle size. Now, when I've read that out, and when you're reading it, you're possibly thinking, is there a real difference actually between strength training and bodybuilding interventions? And indeed, 𝐒𝐈𝐒 published a paper just this year actually that looked at moving away slightly from these 8 to 12 repetition maximum hypertrophic focused interventions, and seeing whether or not we can elicit the same effect with this 3 to 5 repetition maximum approach. So repetitions maximum being the maximal number of repetitions you can perform with proper form and safely to failure. So a 5 repetitions maximum is a weight that you can lift 5 times, really struggling to do that 6. So it's really, really intense. And what he showed was that actually, if we have an intervention that's 3 to 5 rep max, if we match it for volume with 8 to 12 repetitions max, we can get the same hypertrophic response. So you're quite right in thinking, maybe there's no difference. I might be right in thinking that we're going to develop maximal muscle size. The key difference, however, is volume. Volume is the key difference between generating a hypertrophic effect optimally and a strength training effect optimally. To give you a little bit of an idea, this is a huge, this is a huge topic again, we can talk about this for hours, but just to give you an idea of what you might need to do to maximize that hypertrophic response, here's a paper last year from Schoenfeld. Some of you may know him as an authority in the field of strength and hypertrophic training, looking at the difference between 1, 3, and 5 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions, maximum performed 3 times a week. And we're just going to focus here on the thickness, just to illustrate. If we want to maximally, optimally improve muscle volume, size, we need to be doing something for the lower limb around about, let's say, 360 to over 500 repetitions per week. That's a hell of a lot. So I think you're probably going to struggle to integrate that into your endurance training. So I don't think hypertrophy is going to be a real concern. And there's another reason as well that we'll come to shortly. So really, to optimize this strength intervention, optimizing the strength adaptation, this, apologies for the busyness of the slides. Some of you who've seen me speak before will be familiar with this. This is an adapted repetitions maximum continuum from a couple of sources, and the premise of them still hold true today. All I want you to focus on, the number on the top there is a repetitions maximum. So if I'm pointing at 8, that means that represents a load that I can lift 8 times, not really 9. The size of the text is the size of the stimulus. So down here, strength is optimized in terms of 3 to 5 repetitions maximum. So that's the very heavy load. That's where we really want to be at if we want to optimize strength adaptation. And the types of exercises that we do, it really depends on the starting point of that individual. But for the high performing, accustomed athlete, then we're really looking at a gym environment, and more on that later. So let's have a quick whistle stop tour through a couple of really important applications or potential applications for why we should do strength training in an endurance environment. One of which is for performance. I think probably the most debated and discussed is that of injury and injury risk. And I've put underneath there longevity of performance too, because I think that's often overlooked in some of the literature. And when we're thinking, certainly that probably related to the people I see as well, the muscle strength or lack thereof can often be a determining factor of whether or not these individuals are able to continue to perform and go out running as often as they want to. So what I've done is identified a few systematic reviews and meta-analyses. Again, many of you may be familiar with them, and just to look at whether or not strength training has any bearing on injury risk. So 6 years ago, Lawson et al. Did this systematic review, huge review, 26,000 participants, just over, and they were looking at the effectiveness of different exercise interventions on injury risk and injury incidence. And what they saw was strength training reduced sports injuries to less than 1/3, and those overuse injuries can be almost half. Now, if you look at the forest plots here, you can see, so this is strength, that was far more effective than, for example, stretching or proprioceptive training. So a surface level evaluation of this might be actually strength training has a huge effect on injury incidence and overuse injuries. Now, if we look at the individuals and populations within that group, these are team sports athletes and army recruits. And we're questioning whether or not that has a direct application to runners. And in terms of the injuries they were looking at, it was kind of a mixed bag, really. In terms of the overuse, the definitions were anterior knee pain, knee overuse, and some were unspecified. So let's just bear that in mind. Okay, 4 years later, because I assume the potency, or they discovered the potency of the strength training intervention in mitigating injury incidents, the same research group performed another meta-analysis and systematic review on strength-focused exercise on the incidence of injury. So that involved just under 8,000 participants. You can see the number of injuries there. The conclusion was that strength programs reduce sports injuries by an average of 66%, so 2/3. And actually there was a dose response. So ramping up that amount of strength training conveyed a greater protective effect. So the more you did to a point, the better it was. Again, if we look at the populations, we again have got this team sports athletes and army recruits. And with many, in fact, probably most meta-analyses and systematic reviews, you can see quite a heterogeneity sometimes between programs, but nevertheless, it still demonstrated this effect in the meta-analysis. And again, this overuse injuries, some not specifically defined, some generally focus more on the knee. Now let's have another look, or look at another type of intervention that might have shown efficacy in terms of injury incidence and reduction. And this is the Nordic hamstring exercise. So you can see on the right-hand side, it's basically lowering the body. It's a highly eccentric focused exercise where we're eccentrically loading the hamstrings, trying to avoid a face plant, and then pushing up with the arms once you've lowered the body down. It's become really, really popular over recent times. So Van Dijk did this systematic review and meta-analysis just last year, which involved nearly 9,000 athletes. just over 500 injuries, and they, through the meta-analysis, showed that the Nordic hamstring exercises reduced hamstring injuries by up to a half. Again, hugely potent. But if we think about the populations, we're looking at team sports athletes. So does this apply to running? And again, this is a long talk in itself, but let's just have a little look at some of the injuries that are involved in running. So 2012, Lopez published this study, 3,500 runners. The three most common injuries in running during training was medial tibial stress syndrome, Achilles tendinopathy, and plantar fasciitis. If we look at the effects and incidence or protective effect from the previous systematic reviews in these team sports athletes and look at which injuries were affected, it's kind of a way down on what we might expect to see during training. So possibly questioning the effectiveness there. If we look, that same study actually got 126 participants during an ultra marathon and recorded the injuries that occurred during the ultra marathon, and the incidence was slightly different. So the occurrence was more of an Achilles tendinopathy, the top two there, and then patellofemoral syndrome. So however you want to label that, but it might be kind of similar to some of the protective effects that might be generated through those prior interventions, maybe. So if we look at running specific populations, what do we see? Well, just published this year, we've got this randomized study of strength training programs in marathon runners. And this was in the New York City Marathon. So they recruited 720 runners, and 12 weeks prior to the New York Marathon, they got them to complete this strength training program. So 583 people started, 579 finished, and importantly, this was their first time marathon. And the program was a 10-minute strength training program, completed 3 times per week. And what was the effect of that? Well, there was no difference in injury between strength training, between groups that did the strength training or indeed the control group. So the incidence of overuse injuries was not different between groups that did the training and those that didn't. So maybe we're shaping up to say that actually strength training in runners probably doesn't have an effect on injury incidence. But if we look at the components of this program, I might question, and I'm sure you might question as well, its efficacy in inverted commas strength training. So we've got 2 levels, and I fully understand the difficulties of trying to implement this with hundreds of populations or 100 people in this big population. But if we've got a beginner and an advanced level, you've got 20 squats or 20 plyometric squats, 10 lunges and 10 plyometric lunges. You can see where I'm going with this. The marker for progression is once you feel like you can complete them with ease, then move on to the next. So I talk a lot in most of my talks about specificity and what is it that you really want to achieve, then design the program to achieve it. So here I'm really questioning the intensity, the overload, the progression. I'm not too sure about the rest either. So to call this a strength training program, I think is slightly misleading. And thus, I think the conclusion that a strength training program would not be effective in endurance runners is also slightly misleading. So quickly to sum up on that point, strength training may help reduce the risk of injury in team sports populations and military recruits, who we know adhere very well to programs. There's a lack of evidence at present in runners, but I think there's more research to do. And something that I think we need to really focus on as well is the older runner and longevity of performance. So we know that, for example, osteoarthritis is a big issue that may or definitely changes people's activity. We know that that's related. Also, there's a relationship with muscle strength and sensation of pain. So is it that we should be focusing on muscle strengthening for longevity of performance, as well as potentially injury risk? Okay, moving on to performance quickly. And I think this is less well debated. And I think many of you sat there know the effects of strength training on some of the things that relate to running performance. So that's running economy, time trial performance, and sprint speed. So running in economy, it's a really important determinant of distance running and performance. And it's related to the energy or oxygen required for you to sustain a fixed submaximal running speed over a set distance. So in theory, improvements in running economy means that it costs you less to run at that set speed over a set distance. So again, I'm just going to flag up a couple of meta-analyses and systematic reviews. So Donardi, 3 years ago, compared explosive training and heavyweight training and whether this impacted running economy in athletes, endurance athletes. So systematic review, meta-analyses. And we're just going to have to quickly run through the results here as I'm running short on time. So this is a concurrent training program. So strength training and endurance is concurrent training. And that was compared to just endurance training. And what they found was that when strength training was introduced into endurance training programs, it conveyed a 4% beneficial effect on running economy. And actually, if they brought that down to explosive training and heavyweight training, that's 4.8% or 3.7% respectively. Now, there's probably something to say about adaptation in novice resistance training, in that they're likely similar, no matter what you do, whether it's explosive or heavy. And indeed, that also larger effects we're seeing for longer periods of endurance training. And again, those people are more conditioned, likely require a more specific and longer program to elicit those effects. So concurrent training, we spoke a little bit about this yesterday. And I mentioned the interference effect, and this comes into play as well when we're thinking about hypertrophy. In some perspectives, we want to minimize this interference effect. An interference effect is where we perform heavy strength training and really high intensity, high volumes of endurance training in close proximity to each other. And the risk is that the interference effect means that the strength gains are mitigated, or the maximal amount of strength gains you could get is mitigated by the endurance training. Because effectively your body has only so many resources it needs to pull them, and we've seen in several studies that strength gains can be reduced by comparison if you separate those out. And indeed, we published a paper a few years ago. We did this in rehab following autologous chondrocyte implantation surgery, and separated out strength and endurance rehabilitation over the period of years rehab. They did exactly the same volume. But what we were able to show was that a superior adaptation and retention of strength and rate of force development versus the concurrent training. But in an endurance environment where we're looking at endurance performance, actually, we don't really need to think about that, because if the focus is on endurance performance, we've seen plenty of studies that shows that this concurrent effect doesn't impact endurance adaptation. And actually, it probably mitigates some of the hypertrophic gains that you might be worried about. So you probably well know Richard Blagrove, who has published quite a lot in this field. Just quickly to come on to his systematic review and meta-analysis. So these were principally looking at experienced runners, as in the previous one involved novices. This involves those with greater than 6 months of experience in running. And we saw, or he illustrated that heavy resistance training, plyometric training potentially can convey a running economy of 2 to 8% improvement. Time trial improvements, maybe 3 to 5%, and longer distance, maybe 2 to 4%, so broadly similar. And also sprint speed can be improved as well by strength training. And just to touch on this concept of you know, why it might happen, or the mechanisms why it might be happening. Broadly speaking, certainly when I explain to patients and clients and athletes why strength train, I get them to think about their strength as a fuel tank. Now, if you're running on empty, you don't have that much force that you can deploy. Think about putting fuel into a tank. You're not going to go very far if you haven't got much petrol. You're not going to go very fast. You don't have much resource to draw from. However, if we can top that up to full, then everything else, you know, you can go further, potentially faster, for longer. And from an effort perspective, everything else becomes relatively more submaximal. So think about standing up out of a chair. Somebody who's very weak and frail, it might require a maximal strength effort, but improve their strength, then it becomes more and more submaximal. So strength training and the mechanisms and the adaptations mean that from a performance perspective, we've got better motor unit recruitment, and the firing frequency and synchrony has changed. You've got this intramuscular coordination, particularly if we're doing compound exercises. And of course, you've got that adaptation across other tissues as well, the non-contractile tissues, which is really important. So a quick summary on running performance. If we look at how to, or what this looks like, 2 to 3 sessions a week, around about over 6 weeks, is likely to benefit running economy, time trial performance and sprint speed. And if we were to estimate that, what that might represent, a 50-minute 10K, that could be, if it's 5% improvement, you've got a 2-minute shaving off of your time potentially. And incidentally, a great infographic by Rich Willey and Chris Barton and Alexander there on just summarizing those points. So then, how do we integrate it into practice? So Rich Blagrove just this year published this really nice paper and infographic on how to do it from a periodization perspective. And indeed, that marries up with an approach that I have in periodization in rehabilitation. And if you're familiar with periodization too, it probably sits well with you. Most of the people I see, generally, we stay in this strength phase. They're not high performance athletes. Some people are, and we do periodize and change in the way in which we introduce and progress resistance training. So let me just explain what that means. So muscle strength, get rid of the sensory motor abilities. We've got 3 things we're looking at here. Muscle strength, we've got the rate of force development, which is, it's important to be strong, but it's really important to be able to deliver that force quickly. And then we've got something called performance-related sensory motor abilities, which I'm going to call plyometrics. So muscle strength, we've got no concern about how quickly we produce force. We just want to get maximal force. And let's put a little bit more weight on there. You can do the same exercise for power or rate of force development. It's the speed that's important here. We might manipulate the load a little bit, and then you're all familiar, I'm sure, with different types of plyometrics and explosive performance. And if we think about it from a rehab perspective, we're block periodizing these approaches. So you get the strength foundation, then you can develop into explosive performance, and then you can develop a little bit more into functional performance. So how to do it? Number 1, just get started. Do something, get involved in it, and find something that you like. You're going to do something, or your patients are likely to do something more that they like than less than they dislike. Then you can start to play around with the prescriptions. So it's heavy resistance training, 3 to 5 rep max, with a 2-minute rest between each sets, roughly speaking. And ideally, those want to be compound exercises, which is involved free weights, focusing on, again, if we're going for that low-hanging fruit, the thing that's going to give us most of gain on, let's say, running economy, it's the locomotor muscles. So we're looking at the thigh, front, back, glutes, calf. Not to say you ignore the upper body. And that represents lunges, squats, all these types of compound movements. And in terms of a dose, then I think we probably want to get up to around about 35 to 45 repetitions per muscle group per week. So again, I run courses on this, and in other presentations, I've explained how I've got to that from systematic reviews, meta-analyses, and then tailoring the requirement. But here we're probably thinking about the conditioned athlete from a running perspective, so we can start them a little bit higher. And in terms of just to illustrate with a difference in terms of speed. So I've slowed this down just a little bit. I'm not bothered about how quickly this person performs this squat maneuver. This is a strength exercise, and such will be loaded up to represent a strength training stimulus. Also with good technique, so you want to make sure that that individual is able to do that safely and effectively. If not, you might want to adapt it. Then if we're looking at a periodized approach, I'm looking then at explosive resistance training. Here, the real difference is a fast intent, or intent to lift very, very quickly. So it's around about 5 to 8 rep max. We're reducing the loads so we can increase the reps, and also we need to make sure that we're resting properly. And then moving on to perhaps plyometric activities, high speed, short ground contact. Again, because the load's slightly less, so again, we can do a few more repetitions, but still maintaining that fast twitch motor unit recruitment and ability to recover. So how we might perform an explosive exercise. You can see the difference in speed. So this is like a box squat. If you're unable to get down as far, you want to modify it, make it a little bit safer, you can use this. Also, something that's a little bit more advanced as well is the lunge. So doing this with a barbell is more complex than doing it with dumbbells. You can drop the dumbbells if you feel unsafe. This requires a lot more coordination. And finally, just to note that, again, we spoke a little bit about it yesterday in the last sessions about adapting. I think it was Mike that mentioned how you can adapt exercise to make it possible to do. So if we want to maintain that specificity, the strength training stimulus, I don't want to lower the load, I want to adapt the exercise. So if you're dealing with patients in pain, you've got options of changing range of motion and the length of musculature. You've got the mode of muscle activation that you might want to play around with. Nobody says it has to be concentric, eccentric. Isometrics are a great starter. Eccentric preferentially recruits the fast twitch motor units, which can give great benefit, as you've seen with the Nordic hamstring curls. And then also you've got kinetic chain. Is it open? Is it closed? And this compound or isolation exercise or way of delivering exercise, which is another way of changing exercise to keep specificity. So I think I've gone slightly over. I'm sorry, Matt and everyone. So just to summarize quickly, the strength training injury risk, currently limited evidence, but I think there's great potential there. We need to do more research, and I think it's super, super important, those older athletes, and potentially for some overuse injuries. And strength training and performance, I think we've got great evidence how to do it, a progressive approach, not in a bull in a china shop as some athletes are like. Let's start and progress from load and complexity. Compound exercises and free weights are great because it, with good form, presents a greater neuromuscular challenge. And in terms of dosage, maybe about 5 repetitions maximum, sets 3 to 5, aiming for around about 35 to 45 repetitions per muscle group per week. Do not forget to include rest, which is super important. So, and about 2 to 3 times a week. So, sorry for running over, and there we go. So, happy to take questions.
Fantastic, thanks, Claire. Again, amazing slides. I'm so proud. Well, yesterday was great as well, but today you and Trevor put together some amazing slides, and they will take. It was very good. Yeah, that'd be great. Again, it's kind of like note to self, look at those slides again a few times when you can. Great, thanks, Claire, it was amazing. So same format for questions, people. Yeah, we're also admiring your internet, Claire, just to put us out of misery. Who are you with?
Where's that, sorry?
What internet provider are you with? Fantastic video speed, beautiful.
Oh, I'm actually sat in a business centre at the minute that I come to.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
I thought,
I was going to say, I'm in my office. Most of my staff are on furlough. I'm just.
It looks like a virtual backdrop, but it's not.
Cool,
You're actually there.
You know, I've just stopped sharing my screen, and I can't see you guys for some. Oh, now I can. Now I can.
Oh, there you go.
Up. Just when you made a good comment about the internet. it just
jinxed it.
So
Yeah, I tend
this
to do
is a
that.
Mediterranean feel. We've got pissing it down outside.
Beautiful. It's beautiful there. It's amazing.
my
It really looks
staff
like
are
a
away.
fake backdrop. Look at that. Amazing. Great. Yeah. So, okay. So questions, people, you can either stick your hand up. Feel free to go onto Cam if you like, or type something in the chat box. Let me have a little look in the chat box now to see if everyone's just saying awesome, brilliant, amazing, thank you, incredible, brilliant. These are words you're familiar with, Claire, every time you speak.
I'm sorry, it was a little bit longer than
oh God, I'm
it
going
should
to
have been.
stop you. No problem at all. Really actionable. Right, we got oh, here we go. We've got a question here from L Phillips, who is related to me. It's no coincidence. Hey L, how you doing? How's life in North Lancing as opposed to South Lancing? I'm in South Lancing. L's in North. And so L has a question here. Would you start straight away with 3 to 5 reps, or start with a couple of weeks of 10 to 12 to prep the body? Good question. I'm always fascinated by this 3 to 5 reps. It raises alarm bells in me, but solution.
3 sets of 10, obviously. No, actually, that's, I've probably become known for bashing 3 sets of 10. I don't think it's as bad as it. The problem with 3 sets of 10 is there's often no consideration about intensity and progression. So that's where that comes from. But yes, in answer to that question, I wouldn't necessarily start if they were unfamiliar with resistance training and they're an endurance athlete, you're going to get really probably bad DOMs, or you're going to evoke bad DOMs. Now, if they like it, I mean, it's not going to do them any harm. It really won't do them any harm. But if they don't like it, then you might not see them again, and it's probably done your business some harm, or they don't like you, you're right. But if you want to minimize that effect, have a progressive approach. And actually, the DOMS response can be mitigated even by doing some. So Nasaka is the authority on DOMS, and he showed really quite elegantly that even just some submaximal, like 20% of 1 rep max muscle contractions isometrically or concentric eccentric can reduce a DOMS response up to about 2 to 3 days later. So the point being, do something that's probably not maximal, that's greater number of repetitions, lighter load, if you want to just minimize that DOMS response. And also, if you think about complexity and form, it might be that you're teaching them the exercise. So if you want them to do squats and they've never done squats before, you're not going to suddenly turn them into this massive inverted pendulum, and you want to teach that exercise too. So that can be a way of introducing resistance and training technique as well.
Do you think, like, for example, I admit that I worry the idea of 3 to 5 with, say, an elderly population or something, but done properly, as in just with the right cues and everything, and with the right progressive approach where we can start off with 10. Is your goal with any age or any athlete ultimately to get them in that kind of 3 to 5 rep range?
Because they're 70, 80, I'm not going to stop them. I'm not going to shut down. I'm sorry, because you've reached 79 years of age, that means we're no longer able to take you to 3 to 5 rep max. I'm sorry. That's not for me to say. Likewise, it's not for me to say you can never run again. There's obviously a very good clinical reason. But I see people, or when I did see people for lockdown, that would be my aim. So would see people with really quite severely debilitating knee OA pain, and after 12 weeks they were lifting 3 to 5 rep max on the extensions. They were doing leg press and improved their range of motion on leg press because the pain has mitigated, has been reduced. And if you really want to be slapped in the face with your hesitancy, if you Google the Lift More trial, Belinda Beck, here we have great examples and a fantastic YouTube video that I show often. Postmenopausal women who have osteoporosis in a progressive resistance training program built up. I'm not saying jump in at 3 to 5 rep max. I'm not saying progressively get there. It might take, with some populations, it might take a week. For some, it might take 4 weeks. They're there lifting, they're deadlifting their body mass. They're doing military press. They're doing squats over 85% of their 1 repetition maximum with, so safely, the adverse effects non-reported, but the positive effects: improved bone mineral density, reduced falls, reduced consequence of falls, and improved muscle strength, obviously. So I get the hesitancy because people are, inverted commas, frail, but for me that absolutely rings at a bell to say absolutely why we should be focusing on the heavier loads, the more challenging things. We're not going to reverse or improve sarcopenia by giving them a resistance band and go away and do that 100 times.
So in quite a few clinics, probably, if people are going to do that 3 to 5 range, especially with stronger athletes, people are going to need to buy some heavier weights, because the typical clinic has got a couple of 1s, 2s and 3s from Argus packaged together, pink, yellow, green. They're not going to do the job, are they? No.
And I think maybe it's a bit of a controversial statement, but for healthy aging, I would strongly encourage that maybe even on an individual level, but certainly on a community level, we've got those facilities that people can visit that can, because we don't lead active lives anymore. We don't do what our even previous generations did, unless you're, I don't know, a farmer or somebody who's got a really physically demanding job. We're often sat and we're watching telly and we're watching laptops, and we're now with COVID, we've even got a worse pandemic of deconditioning. So I think we need that provision along to enable us to become more resilient, more robust. And as I said, make sure it's safe and you're able, to do that in a progressive manner. But yeah, we need load. We need load. And it's interesting in the COVID environment in that's been, the ability to have this overload has been curtailed because of gyms closing. So I worked with a couple of people in different countries, and fortunately they managed to get hold of some dumbbells, some Bowflex dumbbells, which you can change the weight on. And I think the thing is to work to failure. So if you're really struggling with getting that overload, as long as you're not like 120, 130 repetitions, it's kind of pointless there. You might get RSI or something, I don't know. But certainly make it a physical challenge. And if you can't get to 5 rep max, but you can get to 10, make sure you're going 10 to failure.
Cool. I think maybe Sarah, if you've got anything else you want to ask, or does that answer your question about how to get? Sarah says like clients at home who aren't going to go to a gym, haven't got any equipment. Have you got something else you'd like to ask Sarah with regards to that? Let's put you on.
Hi, Claire.
Yeah.
It's really for what would you tell a client who doesn't go to that gym environment, because it's really hard persuading those clients to go there? So probably following on from my last question is, what if they were to get one piece of kit, what would you suggest? Would it be the dumbbells that you suggested before with the different weights?
Are they quite active? Are they already involved in physical activity, or is this somebody who's
well, anything from people that are starting with strength training all the way up to, it's probably the ones that are really just at the start of the journey that maybe just go out and run and don't quite understand they need to do the strength and conditioning alongside.
Yeah, okay. So dependent on budget, so you can get adjustable dumbbells. You can also get adjustable dumbbells. Weights vest is also another good. And you can even, depending on the physical capability, you can even kind of fashion stuff at home, like having a backpack and chuck in bottles of water, replace the water with sand. Builders sand, I know the like builder supplies are running out of sand, weren't they? Because everybody was buying bags of it over COVID. Just some way, finding a way to generate that overload, that resistance. And then if they want to invest in something, then yeah, those adjustable dumbbells are good. So it's a weights vest. So trying to think off the top, I think pragmatically for space, that's probably my top 2 suggestions.
Yeah, because that'll add in resistance to everything, won't it? So Yeah. Thank you.
Pleasure.
No worries. Wow, questions it's going crazy here. Absolutely, Claire, you've stimulated.
What did I say? I can't understand you. Is that the one?
No. It's just everybody's really on it. It's a massive subject because we're all aware that strength and conditioning is very well supported in the evidence for performance, less so for avoiding injury, but it's still something we may as well do if it's going to help with your performance. So there's a lot of questions here about how to do it. I'm going to pick, we are 10:34, so I'll have another couple. I'm just trying to feed through here to see in case there's anyone who's not on cam who wants a question. Chris, where are you, Chris? Are you on camera? How are you, mate? Chris Kitson, are you around? Or do you want to read it out? It's not like you, Chris, to avoid the camera.
There he is.
There he is, little Chris.
Unmute.
Oh, check him out. Oh, look at this. The boy's growing up to be a man. He's got tats and everything. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Little Alex Horn.
I'm on a bike. That's why I was off camera.
Sorry to disturb your workout, Chris, but we're pleased we have. Let's go for it.
Cool. What was I asking? God, whipping up. There's been loads of really good info. Sorry, I absolutely went then. So, yeah, I mean, like manipulating exercises and things. I suppose, like, so in terms of like a bit of a familiarization phase. So if you've got someone that's absolutely new to resistance training, it kind of sits into where the questions earlier. In terms of kind of time scale, I assume it's more of an individual response anyway. But is there kind of a rough time scale that you might keep them potentially in that phase, you know, with a bit kind of like lower load, higher rep ranges before then transitioning them down into the heavier loads?
Yeah, it's individual from my perspective. I think it's got to be actually. One of which is like the physical capacity, capability, but also the other is, do they feel confident and comfortable? So if they don't, and you push them too hard, then there's a risk of them just disengaging. From a physiologic effect, if you do a heavy, intense session with them and they get really bad DOMs, it's really bad DOMs. You know, as long as that's not doing them any harm. And in actual fact, it's providing a very strong inoculation effect to the next intervention. So you did exactly the same again a week later, you'll have nowhere near the same response in terms of muscle strength and power loss and soreness. But it's just a nicer approach. So and also it depends what exercise you're doing with them. Are they fairly complex? Is it such that they've only got, you know, you're doing complex compound exercises with them. You can't sit them in a leg extension machine and just do something that's really simple and controlled. So it might take more time to learn the techniques and get safety and stability. But in terms of the physiology of it, I wouldn't worry too much that, you know, that soreness means that you've damaged them. I mean, yes, you've caused exercise-induced muscle damage, but the adaptations thereafter and the repair process means that they are going to be stronger at longer muscle lengths and more robust and able to tolerate those loads subsequently. So it's a bit of a crappy answer, sorry, Chrissy, but certainly individualised.
Yeah, do you think, I mean, sorry to drag it on a little bit, just for the, in terms of obviously where they're at in terms of their running as well, because say if there's someone like the response side of things, if they're both new to running and new to resistance exercise. True. You know what I mean? In terms of like the difference between, as opposed to being a proficient runner and then getting into resistance exercise. Again,
I thought about this morning actually, because there's so many different permutations, aren't there? You've got the older experienced runner with knee pain, the new runner who's never exercised before, and there's, you know, risks associated with it. You think about injury coming about and the volume and dosing, and how do you reconcile that? And I'd say that so for that new runner, I'd definitely want to be putting in a resistance session a week in there, and then I think see how they respond physically, and maybe you want to if they're scaling both up, maybe you periodize it a bit. So maybe you put in a block of strength work whilst they're just doing a little bit of maintenance on the running, and then drop that down to just maybe do a single or a half dose of a strength workout, then ramping back up the longer duration, more repetition endurance training, such that they've built that resilience. So I think there's different ways to do it, but certainly because they're new, I wouldn't say ignore it. I'd say definitely incorporate it. It's just striking that balance for that individual.
Perfect, thank you.
Right, guys. I'm sorry. Sorry, Suzanne. Sorry, Mike. Sorry, other people who left comments. We're going to have to save those maybe for 4 o'clock. I'm sure in the Q&A.
I'll just say that if you've got any, certainly if you've got any questions, you've got my email and Twitter, but also on my site, getbacktosports.com, you can pop your email address in there, and it's a free 14-page strength and conditioning guide for therapists. I think it's about 5,000 downloads so far. So that really can help to crystallize some of what I've said into a training and rehab practice. So, please, it's on the front page, somewhere at the bottom. And there's also a strength and conditioning blog as well, if you've not read that.
Brilliant. We'll make sure that link goes into the comments. If someone wants to share that link so it's easy access for other people. Brilliant. Okay, guys, we've got Tom Goon coming up 11:45. So I'm sorry, we'll have to keep the questions for 4 o'clock. I'm sure a great part of our 90 minutes at 4 o'clock will be strength and conditioning for runners. So Claire, you okay for this afternoon?
So sure, I'm boss.
Thank you, boss. I like that. I'll get you far. Right. So wicked. Okay. So sorry I have to cut some of you short. Thanks for your questions. People again. Suzanne. You're listening to Run Chat Live podcast, putting the evidence back into running injury and performance.